Review Board meeting for the City of Fort Thomas. It is 6 o'clock p.m. Can we start with roll call, please?
Jeffrey Seconder.
Here.
Mark Thornell. Pat Haggerty.
Here.
Barry Petrarca.
Here.
Benjamin Novison.
Here. Okay, thank you. First item on the agenda for this evening is an approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting all the way back in June 27th of this year. Are there any proposed edits or modifications? If not, I'll motion to approve. I'll move to approve. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been seconded. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved as submitted. We have one item of new business on the agenda for this evening. It is for 117 South Fort Thomas Avenue. Tracy Hallahan, Fetters Construction is the applicant, and it is for the demolition of two buildings on the property. Is the applicant here in the room?
I'm Albert Fetters with Fetters Construction.
Okay, if you'd like to come up to the podium, you can give us your name and address and provide any additional commentary to your letter. We may have some questions or comments for you.
Appreciate you guys all coming out on a snowy night, first one. Albert Fetters, Fetters Construction. Actually, address is 32 Oak Ridge, Fort Thomas residence. Business is in Newport, Kentucky. I own the old Newport car barn, the old street car. Fetters Construction operates in the basement of that. But we're here on behalf of client Craig and Carolyn Reese, looking at tearing down the two structures on that property. Thought I would give you a little history of Fetters and a little history of them real quick. You guys got that in front of us. We've been working with Kevin and Wes Cunningham. I've been working with Craig and Carolyn since about June of this year, coming up with a plan. But Fetters Construction, I'm usually here presenting a lot of these different things. So that we do a lot of historical. I don't know if you guys followed any of our work, but we had historical Belvedere teams go to our building. Some of my guys teach historical preservation. We did the DBL Law building down in Covington. We did the Flatiron building for Nair on top of Sycamore. We worked on the John R. Green building in Covington. 722 Scott, if you never had a chance, that's a hidden gem that no one knows about. If you go in there, we have those schoolhouse lights and stuff like that. So I do a lot of historical preservation. Obviously, I own the Newport car barn. It's very passionate. It's taken me a while to get where it is. I also own the Westside Cafe building. The reason I have not put a restaurant in there is I don't want the name changed. I want to do Westside Cafe. People had their first drink, the first fight, the first date, whatever. There's a lot of history in that building. I actually got a historical tax dollars from the state and from the federal to renovate that. We hope to start renovating that next year. I work with Hub and Weber a lot to do drawings. Advantage Group is my structural engineer. Some of you guys might be familiar with them. But the property, we were working on this. Some of you might ask what we're going to do. We're still working through that concept. But the goal is, and you have pictures there to see what it was before and what it is now. The goal is to get more showroom space, more space for them. They've been in business for 1940s, but they've been in business. They've been here in Fort Thomas since 2003. So it's been a long time. They gradually grown the business. But long story short is, we went through the process. We were hoping to be here last month. We went through a different process, and we're here this month. We thought we did our due diligence. I had Advantage Group structural engineer. Unfortunately, Steve Ham is out of town. I tried to get Ray Brake here. Unfortunately, I couldn't get him here, but Steve Ham is out of town. You guys have their report. I've renovated a lot of different buildings with them. It's just not feasible to bring this building back to life in the location where it's at. You guys have a budget report, I'm assuming, from what we estimated to bring it back. I don't know if anyone's been in the building. It's lost. I guess in the 1980s, somebody went in there and made it into a two-family. So all your base, all your case, all your doors, all that stuff, they actually, where the old transits go between two doors, That's all just lattice from a deck. Cabinets are gone. They took the main staircase out to make it a two-family. There's obviously aluminum siding on the outside, whatnot. But the other comment is what we're doing too is, you know, we got to think about handicap accessibility and things like that because we're a commercial space. We'll be going back. The use, you know, the use is, you know, again, showroom, make it feasible. Obviously, we got to make it ADA. We still have to go through whatever your guys' decision is today. We still have to go through a whole building zoning thing to what the build the structure. No, you guys are all hopefully Fort Thomas residents. You see my house over in Oak Ridge. I built that 12 years ago. I have dental teeth. I'm not a huge fan of dental teeth, but I made my house blend into the neighborhood. I did a pretty good job. I wish I would have known. They tore down the Steinhauser, tore down Lester's house. I would have built it just like that. I was looking for it to make it mirror the street. We're gonna do the same thing here. We'll blend that into Midway and make it look like it's part of been there for years. The other thing is, you know, we're struggling with it. We're struggling with this big time, and I'm trying to talk to the clients. We went through the process, and you know, there was no intention of neglect. This report you guys have, you know, and I want to make that clear for the record because this is a business that's been there and took a chance on Fort Thomas a long time ago, and it's pretty strong words to say they neglected the building. It's been there. They maintained the yard. They've done the thing, but they never, you know, the intent was never to have a residential house behind a commercial building. So, you know, I think they took good offense by that, the word neglect. You know, they paid their property tax, they paid taxes on this. The value of the house right now is $167. I think they're paying property tax on. They've done that, but like that's, you know, I don't know if any of you've been in it. The police have been called there a couple times. There's been broken windows. There was an archery incident just recently there that, you know, so there's been things have been boarded up. But I think that no one's lived in this building, I don't know, since 06. So no one's lived in the building to say it was neglected. Like it was never like, it was being neglected, then they should have been getting fines from the city saying you're neglecting this property. But you know, we take great offense to that, and I just want to make that, you know, these two we're not an out-of-town person coming into the city to tear down a building. We're not an out-of-town business coming here. You have a thriving business that supports Fort Thomas, that brings people to Fort Thomas, and pay taxes, and they bring people that never been. I have clients that come to them from Montgomery to Milford to Fort Mitchell. You know, they're bringing people here, and they've been here, and they've been on boards for the city. They supported organizations in the city, and I want to make that clear because everything we say in here is public record, and that, you know, it's hard. And there's going to be people that's upset that we're tearing down a house. Don't get me wrong, you know. I wouldn't be here today though if I thought there was a huge historical thing like that. I would be like, no, I wouldn't be. I would tell them they had to go find a different contractor. I do it. The Westside Cafe. I can tell you how many people wanted to go in there and put a Mexican restaurant, a different restaurant. I build a lot of restaurants. I was like, no, it's going to be the Westside Cafe. It has that. The building right by my house, the Briarcliff. It pains me that somebody painted the outside of that brick. That's the Briarcliff. Why did that get painted? I don't know, but it pains me every day I drive by it. I'm mad at myself. I had 2 or 3 years ago, I had an opportunity to buy that. I wish I would have. But it pains me that they painted that outside brick because we can't get it back. So I am a one that supports that. It's just in this case, and I challenge you guys to look at every project's unique. Every project, every house is unique. Every situation is unique. I went and try to do research on the house and trying to figure it out. My father-in-law is Dr. Grover, born and raised here. I asked him, when I bought my house over there on Oak Ridge, the land, I said, man, what am I going to dig up? I said, Tony, he went out there and we walked, and we put a stake there. He goes, you're going to find a stone wall right here. There used to be a fountain. And I found that stone wall within two feet of it. I asked him, he's been a resident of the city, left this grew up here, left and came back, he didn't know who the house, you know, there's different houses, there's different things that have things. I restored 20 Gaddis, one of the oldest houses in Fort Thomas. So long story short is, you know, there's the feasibility, it's $1 million to bring this thing back. And I don't know who's gonna pay $1 million to live right behind a commercial building, no yard and no driveway. The other comment is, if we were gonna do it as a commercial thing, the $1 million doesn't include, how do we get it handicap accessible? How do we get it all up to ADA? That's gonna add more money. So I don't think, but I challenge you, I know things happen in the city. I hope you guys look at this case a little differently. We try to do our due diligence. We went through the process. We met a structural engineer on site, got some opinions. We did a lot of things ahead of time. It's not like we just last week we came to the city and said we want to tear down my house and build a building. Plus, we have a business that's been here since 2006. And one of the first ones in the Midway business. I don't know what to believe, but them at Fort Thomas Forest, they're probably one of the two oldest businesses in Fort Thomas. You know, business come and go. If we don't get this approved, yeah, I don't know, but you know, they need to grow. They need to grow. Are they going to leave? I don't know that. Is the building's going to sit there and become blighted anyways? You know, I don't know. If the city wanted to pick it up and move it, if there was that much historical thing, I would chip in and do it, but I just don't see it. I don't see it, and I'm a strong believer, and I wouldn't be here in front of you guys if I wasn't strong, and I've been through the building, I've been through the structure, and I've been through tons of structure. The sad news is you go down we call it the Cave of Wonders in my building, in the basement. I keep everything. Doorknobs, the doors, the mantles, everything, we use them. There's not even any of that in there. There's nothing for me. I wanted to, you know, one of my staff says, go tell them you're gonna, anything that's historical, you'll take out and say. I was like, there isn't. I've been through it. There's nothing historical left, you know. So that's, you know, that's kind of my say, but I'm here to answer any questions, and I hope you take it's hard because, you know, different things happen in the city, but this is a unique situation. Every situation is unique, and I hope you can take your blinders off of the whole thing and think about this project. Think about the project. Think about the clientele that they're bringing to the city. Think about what they've done for the city. Think about how long they've been here. We don't want to lose a business like them. We don't want to lose the foot traffic that comes with them to support the Midway, to support the Post, to support all this. But I'm here to answer any questions. I'm here all night. But we went around and around about it. But I guess that's you know, it's just not feasible, and that's my big argument. I guess it doesn't make sense.
Thank you for that. I've never been in the West Side Cafe, so I look forward to my first beer and kiss.
And there you go.
No fighting.
No fight. There you go.
I'm not a fighter. Maybe just a couple of initial comments just to make sure we're talking the same thing, and then obviously the rest of the gentlemen can weigh in here a little bit. We do review these on a case-by-case basis. We have a set of guidelines that were adopted many years ago that we have a responsibility to interpret and apply on a case-by-case basis. I appreciate all the background. Certainly appreciate the existing commercial structure, the furniture business, and everything that you said about what it does for the city. That's not contemplated by our guidelines, so while it is important, it does mean a lot to the city and to all of us as residents, that should not influence our review or decision-making process. I didn't write the report. I think Wes is online and available. The term demolition by neglect is a technical preservation term. It's not one that is intended to cause offense. It is simply meant that if things like holes in roofs aren't addressed and the building leaks, as you're well aware, it will begin to deconstruct and fall apart. And if it is left untreated for years upon years, it will simply exacerbate. So that is a technical term, and there are are plenty of cases where buildings have fallen down. There's a big one in Cincinnati right now on a commercial structure that was left to rot and fell down, and several people are involved in lawsuits with the city now as the city tries to hold that property owner accountable. We obviously don't have any plans on what would be proposed to come in the future, so we can't contemplate that in our discussion either. As a historic structure, you get a lot of leeway on accessibility, so that should just be noted. And then not really knowing, I think we have 4 architects up here, also who all do preservation, restoration work, not knowing what you're contemplating for the build out. That seems astronomically expensive, and I'll just leave it at that. That seems very expensive. Our guidelines also, and our charge is only to review the exterior of the property, so the interior condition or whatever would be contemplated as a restoration or rebuild on the interior, we don't regulate and don't have control over. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments in response to what you shared, just so we're all kind of level set on what we're tasked with review.
Jeffrey, if I may, just a few comments, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So a couple quick things. We obviously have a report from Fetters and response from Wes. I don't know if you would like a brief from Wes summarizing his report, or if you just want to ask questions about the report. He's obviously here to do, at your request. I did want to make note that Wes received this information. This is kind of an old review of this district. It was the rear home was deemed a contributing structure. That's what he based his information on. This wasn't a report that he created and or made his own interpretation of. So this was an older evaluation of that district when it was, given the historical status. Additionally, we do need to act on both structures. Obviously, one is contributing, the one in the front is not contributing, but we still want to have a finding of fact for both structures independently. The one in the front obviously has less requirements associated with it, but is still could have value, and we still want to make sure that you act when a motion comes at some point on both structures individually. That's really all I have at this time. Certainly I'll be available for any questions, but I think the next step was, I didn't know what you wanted from Wes, whether it was a summarization or just question and answer.
Yeah, so for anybody in the audience or online, Wes is the historic preservation consultant for the city of Fort Thomas. He prepared a report in response to the application. His recommendation is to deny the application for demolition as submitted based upon the fact that it does not satisfy the 3 priority 1 requirements for demolition. So, Wes, I don't know if you can hear all this. If you'd like to take the floor for a minute and provide any other commentary from your end.
Yeah, I can speak. I will say I have not really been able to pretty much anything other than what you have been saying. I guess it's where the computer is aimed. But just to kind of reiterate what's in the report, the design guidelines as they're written, they're only, with the three considerations for demolition of a building within the local historic overlay district. The first one being the building is deemed a public health or safety hazard by the city building inspector. The inspector is, hasn't been brought into this, so that is automatically that condition is not met. The second one, Wilder, it's a written report performed by a licensed structural engineer architect noting structural damage sufficient to render rehabilitation as unfeasible. They did have the report by a structural engineer, and it was kind of inconclusive, noting that there is a lot of issues with the building, but not really going too in depth in a lot of that, and just by the sheer fact that there structure up to compliance with building property maintenance code is deemed to place an unreasonable economic hardship on the owner. This economic hardship, I know you mentioned that, the language I put in my report is that, I deem this case to be, as you mentioned, demolition by neglect as opposed to an economic hardship, because the building has been in the owner's, under their ownership for 16 years, unless there is proof that today, or that the building was in as bad, if not worse condition when they purchased it. Typical preservation practice is that this would be deemed a self-made hardship instead of an economic hardship. The term demolition by neglect is just it's language that we use in the preservation field to kind of highlight the fact that the building is in such bad shape now because it hasn't been taken care of over the stewardship of the current owner. So that kind of negates the economic hardship, and like I said, it's viewed as more of a self-made hardship as opposed to an economic hardship. And since all three of those, none of the conditions were met, that is why my report concluded that my recommendation is to deny the application for demolition.
If I may, one other item, in reference to what Wes just said, the one item is if the structure.
Specific questions, I can only really hear them from the folks that I'm looking at it, I guess. And everything else has been kind of muddled, like the teacher from Charlie Brown.
So this question is not directed to Wes at this time. I'm sorry, Wes. But I just wanted to note that the structure, one of the options, the structure being deemed a public health or safety hazard by the city building inspector. We kind of purposely chose not to inspect this building to create some sense of favoritism on our end, one way or the other. So I'd rather you not take that into consideration. Based on the report, certainly there seems to be some basis that this could be considered a public or safety health hazard. Some of those criteria generically are, structural elements that are unsafe, roof damage and things like that. So, if we did that, it certainly could fall within that range. But once again, for us to step in and kind of, it felt like we might muddy the waters by saying, yes, this is a public safety hazard, so you can act in this regard, or it's kind of questionable. It's certainly not, falling in or falling over, but it's got plenty of issues. So I just wanted to make note of that.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Fetters? Just looking at your estimate to redo this building, you've got footer foundation. What were you going to do? What shape is the foundation in now?
It's an old stone foundation. Some of this collapsing in, so it's kind of like we have to do. We have to shore it up, we have to pend it. Worried about like the one side. Wes is saying about Advantage Group. Advantage Group, the steps are gone in the basement. They're all rot. Like you took one step and it just fell. But they're also the walls, the stone walls caving in. It needs to be shored. Like, hey, you got to shore all this stuff before we even go down there. We're not going down there to do that. And I've been in buildings in OTR, Covington, all over the place with Steve, and we climbed in, and it just wasn't, that's the frustrating part for me. The frustrating part for me is I don't know how many people in this room have been in the building, and I'm here. And that's the frustrating part for me. Vantage Group is a very highly reputable. I've been working with it for 30 years. But my comment to you is like the car barn. I'm using my building. I put 400 yards in to hold the whole bridge side up because that stone foundation is 2 football thickness tie back. Monarch down there, DVL wall, we had to go down and pen and do stuff. Like there's some major structural issues with the house. It's an old stone foundation, it's leaking water, groundwater, not that, downspouts, it's just.
And what's the percentage of damaged foundation? Half?
Yeah, I guess you can say, it's close to half because it's the one side. you know, there's other issues there, so yeah, you do that. You know, you got major things and you're not, I did Gaslight Bar and Grill over in Clifton, you know, took the whole thing and shorted it. It's the old library and it's right on Ludlow Avenue, and I was able to do it. But, you know, you have to hold that up. I'm gonna be taking somebody's gonna do that, they're gonna take that floor out, go down there with the skid steer and stuff, and drill and get down in there and shore that thing up. It's obviously, the other comment is you can go on the outside of it. You know, if, I'm using, Steinhauser's property, you know, I did that house for my father-in-law. You know, again, we built around it, you can't even tell it's their old house, but the front door's still there. We saved the historical part of it, but same sort of thing. We went out 15 feet in front of it and built a whole new foundation wall because it was sliding down the hill. You could go the outside of it and do it that way versus the inside. You could go around the perimeter and, you know, and under what we did, undermine and benched it. You know what I mean? So, you know, but something's gonna have to be done. The windows are all, you know, I don't know who, you know, that's the frustrating part, and I'm not mad at you guys, I'm frustrated at the city because of neglect. The city then, it's not you guys, the city should be fining them for neglect. They should have been there knocking on the door, why aren't we protecting this building? You know, when whoever put the aluminum windows in it and took the historical windows out, they should have been knocking on the door saying, why are you taking the windows out? Why are we taking the staircase out and making a tooth man? You know, there's just a lot of things that went south, and it's unfortunate for all of us in this room. I know it's conformity, you know, but it's unfortunate in this situation. Like I said, in 7 years, you know, we're actually having I just left the sound check and stuff. I'm having a big 7-year celebration for our company. It's 7 years is better, but I've been doing this for 20-something years before with a partner. I've been, you know, we did 560-something projects, and I would say 100 of them are historical. You know, I support in Weiser School, they just was there. You know, we have guys that teach that on Madison, like, you know, I don't know. It's frustrating, but you know, what I encourage, you know, West paid Advantage Group a lot of money to go over there and look at the building and write a report. They went through the building, you know. I'm not trying to be confrontational or anything like that, but you have a resident, a local business that's willing to spend money to go do this, and we have an outside consultant, West, nothing. Come down and look at it.
So there is I'm gonna ask us to stay a little bit on topic again, and I'm not trying to be confrontational either, I promise. I'm familiar with the company, I think our companies have done work together. We hold individual property owners to the same set of guidelines as we do commercial structures. Small, medium, large, same rules apply. We have a precedent on this board of making field trips at the request of an applicant if we get to a point where there might be a disconnect between what we can see from the outside, which is what we are charged with reviewing and regulating. If you would like to request a field trip where we can all go over and look at the interior as architects and people who do preservation work as well, we certainly can entertain that.
The question about, and this came up in my conversation with Wes, this is Wes's second report. When I had a call with him, this is something for knowledge sake, because like I do when we get SHPA and like, you know, when you're doing that, and I can help offset some of this feasibility and things like that. The interior, which I know you're saying your board doesn't do, which is good, but I would encourage, you know, because we have clients lose federal money or state money. Building on Pike Street, there was a stairwell, old bar, went to nothing. Key to photography, redoor. There's an old bar, and they're getting tax credits. And somebody did a apartment, and then we brought the old staircase back. We found the old pictures, and the staircase were on the side, like typical. And we went to Firestone and found the maps and showed them that it was. But we still lost historical tax credits because we took a stairwell that went to a ceiling. That was for an apartment that was done in the 1980s. So your concern, one of my things in here is for education for myself, but also education for you guys is I would love for you, the board, to look into that because you are gonna do historical and preservation, you know, the way it's gotta be feasible is you gotta get help from the state or whatever you're gonna go get that, because windows are expensive and things are expensive to bring back historical. But I challenge you, I deal with SHPO a lot, and the interior is just as important to them as the outside. I did that with the west side. I wanted to change a staircase, and I'm not changing a staircase, you know. So the national and the state does look at the inside of these buildings. I know you guys are not designed to do that, but you know that is one of the things. But there's a lot of shoring up to do. Like you said, going back to the foundation. The foundation is the bone in any building. If you get it wrong, you know it's there. Water is the worst thing to a building. The good news is we are in Fort Thomas. The people who got in, it's been kids or whatever. There's been knives from the restaurant thrown in. There's been archery bows and things like that. But like in OTR, we're fortunate we hopefully don't have the squatters that end up burning down the building by sitting in there. But the water does get in. They've done what they could to protect the water from getting in it. But the water does get in, and an old foundation is going to get in. I don't know. I don't know, but But your answer, I guess, I went on a tangent. I apologize for that. I'm just.
I've been in the remodeling business my whole life, so I mean, this estimate just seemed really high to me. And it all starts with the foundation. The foundation is reasonable if it can be repaired. I think everything else is a given. You know, it can be removed and replaced and done properly.
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm sorry, like right now, there is people who maybe can do it cheaper. I don't know that. I know, I used to be able to build a house for $150 a square foot. Right now, I can't touch a house for less than $325. My camping can. There's companies out there going for $270 or $250. My company could not do that. I'm doing a house on off Riverside, Oak Ridge, right by me, and putting an addition on the back of a house right now. And the addition itself is almost $400 a square foot, and it's not high finishes and things like that. But we had foundation issues, we had drainage issues, and you have all that stuff. I don't daylight. I don't splash water. I pipe water away from the house. Like I'm gonna dig. If I'm gonna do that, my name is on my buildings. I know this for a fact because I have my 7-year anniversary. We did 561 projects in the last 7 years. Only 19 clients. We have a lot of repeat and a lot of referrals, and we deal with developers who do that. So, you know, there is people who will come in there and do it for cheaper. The other question is, are you going to want historical windows in there? You know, if somebody's going to do that, if it's really a historical house, then, you know, I've gotten sun windows approved from Ohio, but other ones, you know, I did Road IE, the building in Old Johnson Moving where Libby's is. I did both of those buildings, and you know what we spent on windows down there. I just did Chris Meyer's house in Wall Woods that caught on fire. We brought that back historically. So just did one in Price Hill. It is what it is. It's hard for me because I've been doing it for almost 30 years. Pricing is ridiculous. Some of the labor is coming down right now, but your mechanical trades are still way high, but their costs are just, the lumber and stuff is not. It's not. I hate to say it, it's not the best time. I tell my clients all the time, the phone keeps ringing, I said, now's not the time to build if the prices are too high. And I hope they come down because people can't afford it.
Kevin, what is the stipulation if they go with this renovation? Do they put windows? Do they take the siding off? What do they do with that building?
You know, I mean, generally it's put it back to the condition it was, you know, as far as a requirement. Now, that being said, is that what they would, it doesn't sound like that would, what they would want to do if it came to that. But beyond that, I think, you know, Jeffrey mentioned about, you know, ADA accessibility, you know, it was a good point by Albert that, you know, this prior was a residence. So if they wanted to somehow incorporate this into the business, there are some historical ADA regulations, but on the flip side, they're changing the use. And when you change the use of the structure from a building code standpoint, you gotta bring it up to code. So you have to have ramps, and you have to have a lot of those things in many cases. And once again, not exclusively, but in many cases, if you're changing this to a commercial space, you have to bring a lot of that stuff up to a code from the building code standpoint. Once again, I don't know all the very specific things that you don't have to do, but a lot of things you do have to bring up to code.
And maybe that's a point of clarification, is just, I think a lot of the conversation has been about demolition or historical rehabilitation in the context of trying to recreate what originally was there. Is the proposal to use the house, and a lot of the numbers that were floated were based on having a 2 apartment rental, and now we're also talking about a commercial space. So I guess I'm just not quite following. What is the proposed?
The proposal is bringing it back to a normal residence type thing. What we did not do is
a single family?
Single family. And I did, like, the windows are bringing back, I didn't use vinyl windows, I used an upper window, hoping that you would do sun. But that is, I don't think they have any intention of that. I think they will move. Talking to them, like, they need to grow. In today's world, and it has nothing to do with you guys, the business world's hard. A furniture store is hard. People are buying online. They're unique, they have a good following, and so the problem is they don't have a use for it either. I don't think they're gonna spend $1 million on that, and tied for that is like Kevin's saying, like, there's gonna be more money to, maybe you save money on the windows, but by the time you do all the ADA stuff and get it, I don't know the use for them for the furniture store, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I guess there's a couple paths that end up working around the conversation, because obviously we're here to evaluate an application for demolitions. So then we're not necessarily getting into historic review and the requirements for it and everything, but it is related, at least adjacent to the conversation of the financial feasibility, if that's the one of the 3 bullet points that we're trying to focus on as being the justification for the demolition. So then I guess my question really is, are we evaluating the financial feasibility of remodeling this as a single family residence to sell it? Are we trying to propose it as remodeling it to create 2 apartments that are being leased as a 2-family unit? Or are we trying to document this as something that's technically infeasible to change the use for a commercial use of the existing structure?
The estimate in front of you is, so that's where it gets sticky. The estimate in front of you to bring it back to a single family. Because, hey, if you're gonna do that, you're bringing it back to historical, and the inside's not gonna be historical in this estimate, but, you know, it's gonna bring it back to a residential house. It was, before that, somebody turned it into where the money is. The last known use was 20-something years ago, was a 2-family. So that's where the 2-family was shown, like, hey, you even brought it back to a 2-family, could it sustain, and the return on investment. You know, somebody came in there and said, hey, I wanted to make this a 2-family again. Could you get that return on investment to shore it up and do everything? The other comment is, we did not do a proposal, I guess, to say, hey, here's what we would have to do to bring it up to a commercial space. The other comment is to bring it up to a commercial space, or what about parking? You know what I mean? We're working through how we would add on to them because of parking regulations. We need building, you know, so the front, you have parking there where there's 2 structures there, you know, so you have some parking there, and so it does allow us to go out the side, you know what I mean? But we're also talking about, hey, it is a nice big parking lot back there. You turn around, you make the store front. That's why we don't have. We've been brainstorming 3 or 4 different ways, like just to continue that storefront down to make it all blend in, like it was all there on the midway, and you're driving around back, like where all the parking is. So we're still working through that. The goal was, we started this in June. We started this with the city in about 2 months ago, I'd say, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. The goal was to, you know, try to get this thing down before the weather hit too. And then we also, they called the police a couple times and like, hey, safety concern, we're still fighting that battle. So to your point though, yeah, this is there's a lot of judgment in it, there's a lot of judgment in that money. But I think if you guys are doing construction right now, if you ask, you obviously, I think some of you guys are architects, you see, pricing is what it is. It doesn't take long to ring something up, I did those houses down in Dug Reserve that I couldn't sell, and I did them for $300 a square foot, and I still couldn't sell them. I took a bath, in the old trailer park. No one could do that, they were home around the homes. I spent a ton of money. I lost a lot of money taking a shot, but it also was the timing was not right. The timing was when I signed my thing, we were supposed to be building 2 years prior to that. Well, the problem was, the economy switched and prices went here, so that's where we're at in today's world, the pricing.
Yeah, and I guess really, more of what I was trying to direct the conversation at was just we're trying to hit some point of evaluation for things that are in the guidelines, right? So I think there's a misconception a lot of times in these meetings that we're just up here giving our opinions on stuff, and our opinion is what is the final answer, right? We're trying, but really we were given a kind of a charge of, here are the requirements for an application, and we have some requirements for how that application is evaluated in order to arrive at a conclusion or an interpretation of those requirements. So I think the application though is for demolition of the structure, and more specifically trying to document the economic hardship or the infeasibility for financial cost of rehabilitating the existing structure.
That's correct. Yeah.
So in order to evaluate that, I guess I personally feel like I need to understand if you're creating an economic or a pro forma for what the work is going to be, the numbers, if they're for a single family residential, should be weighed against what the economic return would be on selling a single family residence as opposed to renting two single family or two apartments, right? And so then, and I mean, I guess I can tell you're frustrated. I sense your passion, and that's not anything that I feel that it's great that you're passionate about the historic preservation stuff, and I also think that we're not necessarily looking at that tonight. So just in the interest of time and staying on topic, I think trying to weed down to the proposal or request here is about the demolition for the evaluation of the cost of the rehabilitation rate.
We maybe did you misjustice there by comparing the numbers for a two-family. We just thought that was more, the return on investment would be higher for a two-family than a single resident. So that's why we had it, because that's what the last use was. But your return on investment for your single-family house is not going to be that. People do what I call white elephants. People do spend money. And look at mine. I paid $250,000 for my lot in Fort Collins 12 years ago. I took a chance. Like, hey, that's a lot of money for a lot, but I wanted to be in Fort Collins for the school district, and I wanted to build my own house. So I get that, but my comment is, maybe, I'm sorry, I apologize for that, but I did it, the return on investment, my first step was, we got a structural engineer. I was understanding that, hey, we need to go get a structural engineer to look at the thing and do that. We did submit that, then we came back with less, like, we need more information. More information, like, hey, we need this. So we started researching and we came up with this. So we're trying, I apologize for not getting you the right information, I guess.
Well, I mean, I guess
Let me check in on the structural report. It is very thin.
yeah,
I mean, it could be, this is a 2-page assessment that, references a dead animal in the basement. Like, this is not a technical engineered report, in my opinion. And I've done a lot of work with those guys too. So, I would feel more comfortable understanding the true condition of the base structure if this were a more robust technical engineered report of, this is the lineal footage of stone foundation based upon our observation, repairs are going to require all the stuff you described, and there's this much lineal footage and it corresponds to this, and this is just a very, very light engineered
and I apologize for that. I was, Steve, he just felt like it was, one, we're trying to save the interest of our client money, why when he walked in, it's like, holy cow, you know, and, that's where we went wrong, I guess, you know, Advantage Group, our client paid, I think it's almost $800 for that, what you're saying, the scheme report, not including my time and, whatnot, so, we didn't think we would be here today. And we apologize for that. I apologize that he's out of town. It's just,
I mean, I guess maybe a recommendation is, there was nothing in the report about the foundation, right? I mean, that I saw, I mean, it came up in a pricing thing, so if that's a big pricing document, or a big factor in the cost, if that were something that was documented in the report, it would be something that is more clearly directional, arrival at a conclusion for that being a case, right? That's justified and it hits the bullet point of the application requirements.
yeah, I take blame for that. I take blame, you know, Steve, when I'm not used to him like saying, hey, you gotta shore up the thing before you go in, and before I do more, like we walk through the thing, we spent probably a half hour before, like, this is easy, you know, so I apologize for that, because I thought it was, I didn't think I'd be here today, because I've been in a lot of historical buildings and did a lot of different things, and, all I can do is apologize. I did my client disservice, I guess, by you saying that's skinny, but I thought we followed the process, and obviously we didn't. We tried to do this, we did the first take with Wes. We had, you know, first take was like, hey, no, you need to get a structural engineer. We went and got a structural engineer to go over there. You're not an engineer. I'm not an engineer, but I've done a lot of his, you know, I get it, you know. So we did do that, and I told Craig and Caroline, I was like, you gotta spend money. We gotta go spend money and get a structural engineer there, and I did. In today's world is, I don't know, time is money. And I wish on the other hand, I would have made him do a more thorough report. But again, at what cost? I don't want to be negative, but I also, this is a learning thing. At what cost does somebody spend, a client, all right, spend to do this? You know, at what cost do you want them to spend $5,000 on a thorough report? And it is historical, and I say that. And it took me a minute because I would, you know, I'm in your shoes. I want to make sure. And I don't want to set precedents. But at the same time, at what cost is it the city's responsibility to spend money and, you know, and do theirs and protect, like, you know, I don't know. But that's the hard thing for me, because I'm 100% with you guys. I don't want to see buildings taken down. I hate it. I do hate it. I've built churches over top of churches and left them in there. You go up to Landon, Ohio, I actually physically bought it. I built a church over top and left the church in there. So I get it, but at the same time, it's like, I never thought I'd be here. And that's shame on me, shame, I'm sorry, Craig, for letting you, but, you know, I should have had Ray Brake come out instead of Steve Arm. Or Robin Hahn, which I do, but, like, you know, they're both, Robin's retired and Ray's halfway retired. But I apologize for that. But you know, all I can say is it needs significant things. Our client does not, never was an intent to restore the house when they bought the property. You know, it wasn't, they've been running a successful business, and they've been moving, like, you can look at those pictures you have, they started here, they moved here, they moved here, they moved here, you know, finally the business is growing, and now they're moving here. But it has nothing to do, I get it has nothing to do with you, but that's their take, is like, the city never, we had no intentions of ever bringing and having somebody living in a house there. They'd never had anyone since they owned it live in that house. And, it's just, yeah, it's a hard thing, and I get it, I get where you guys are at, But I also, I hope you can subjectively look at each project as, you know, what it is in each situation. And, I wish I had more information for you, but we don't. And, you know, I wish somebody would have protected the house a long time ago. For it, the same thing as like you know, I hate it. Like I tell you now, my wife's like one night the day they came, I drove down the street, she's like, why'd you slam on the brakes? When they painted the Briar Clip thing, I said, remember I told you I wanted to buy that? And he said, we got so much going on. I said, I should have bought it. You know, I drive by that building every day, and it drives me nuts to somebody put paint on that old historical building. And I have to look at it every day, and it's gonna eat me alive. Somebody else might be doing the same thing, but I'm only one person, you know? There's gonna be somebody who's gonna be upset, and there is rightfully they're gonna be upset, just like I am for that. But what's the mass? You know, we gotta look at the situation, and sorry.
Let's pull this back in. I mean, this underreport references neglect, just as a commentary. I think that in the scheme of a potential project, making an investment with a structural engineer to perform a thorough analysis of the condition of the building and have that submitted as part of criteria number 2 for consideration, to me, without making a ruling of any sort, but just speaking as a way to try to help. There's a very thorough technical report by a structural engineer or an architect that satisfies bullet point number 2 in the criteria for evaluation of a demolition application. To me, that would be worth the $5,000 investment. And I'll leave it at that.
No, and that's what I said. I apologize. Hindsight's 20/20. I hear what you're saying. I didn't. Hindsight's 20/20. I didn't. So
I've got a quick question. Are you suggesting that this matter be continued in progress?
So nobody's made a motion yet. We're still, I think, kind of in discovery phase. But as I look at what we're asked to interpret and apply on a case-by-case basis, and I look at the packet of material that's been submitted to try to justify demolition, I don't believe, as currently submitted, it rises to the level of satisfying the bullet points that we're asked to interpret and apply. I believe there could be. I also don't want to make any statements that say that if this goes from a 2-page report to a 10-page report, it's a slam dunk. But I do think a more thorough report would probably, hopefully, on behalf of the owner, more clearly demonstrate the structural integrity or lack thereof of the building.
So, Mr. Fetter, what I'm hearing, excuse me, is that I think you've got a couple options. You can go through with your hearing tonight, and who knows what will happen. If you want, I'm hearing that if you want to continue in progress, you and your client, there's a receptiveness to that. Do you know what you would like to do?
Let me add one more thing. I said a few minutes ago, we also have done site visits at the request of an applicant, both inside and outside, for specific cases. So I think I would add that on, at least from my perspective. I'd be more than happy to go check it out. So
my other question I have too, so that bullet point, there was a lot of question about the feasibility. Are you guys thinking I'm inflating these numbers? You don't think that's a reasonable number to bring this thing back? Is that what I'm hearing?
I guess the question, the content of the numbers relative to the scope of the building, there's not anything in the reports that have been provided as documentation that suggests that every single surface in the house has to be rebuilt and every single structural element has to be replaced. So we're only able to react to what's given to us, and I've worked with Advantage engineers myself tons of times, and so I have good respect for them. It's not the issue of that, it's just that there's not a clear statement in the report that says this house needs to be torn down, or the roof is not structurally sound without effectively replacing the entire thing. The foundation is not able to be saved as it is. It has to be entirely replaced. The entire structure has to be shored up. There's not any necessarily directive in that, and so it's hard to react to the numbers, which is just a line item, and I'm not saying that we necessarily need like a super detailed quote in order to satisfy the requirement that I'm just making up right now. It's just that there's not any statement of fact in the report that then leads you to a conclusion of here's a number and why it's included, and therefore this is something that's too expensive. Does that make sense? Or
Somewhat, but like, there's a square foot number we always have to do a square foot number for renovation. You don't know what that is because you don't know what's in there. And I get that, so I get this. I get what you're saying, but, yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know, Craig, I can't make that decision for my client. My suggestion would be to vote on, because we should have came here last month. I think last month we were prepared and we canceled. But like, at some point he has to do his business, you just stated right before this meeting, the last meeting was June, whatever, minutes. You're waiting, the next meeting with the holidays and stuff, when is that gonna be? You have a quorum. Hopefully it's that, but like, they need to make business decisions, I need to make business decisions. They gotta make, and if it isn't, then they, it's going a different route, he has to make that, I can't make that decision for him.
we meet monthly if there's an application.
So, I don't know, I guess I could walk out in the hall and ask him, his thing, or you wanna, however you wanna do it, or you feel comfortable asking, but,
As the property owner, I mean, I don't never had a plan.
I'm sorry, if you're gonna speak, you need to get that microphone, please. And if you can give us your name and address. Thank you.
Craig Reese, 1123 South Fort Thomas Avenue. As the property owner, when we bought that, we never had any intention at all of saving the house. It was always bought so that we could expand our business down the road, which we had already done. I remember having conversations with Ralph Hopper about it, and off the record, and we're buying this, we want to continue to expand our business, expand our footprint. At no time did anybody ever tell me that was probably not a good idea, or that wasn't possible. So it's been vacant, we've used it for storage. So I'm kind of wondering why we're going through all of this, because I'm not going to renovate the house. Will not renovate the house, never intended to renovate the house. The property was bought in order to be able to expand our business someday. When we bought it, we were actually thinking about putting a warehouse on the property. That's when I got into conversations with Ralph, and I thought that probably really wasn't a good idea, just because of the design and how it would look from the street. But again, we're also talking about a house. If we're being honest, how many people knew that house was there before this came up?
I've always thought it was a curious property.
Can I ask that question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always thought it was a very curious property, but actually the report from Wes made it make sense that there's a small barber shop in front of what was the barber's residence, so.
Yeah, that's not with the report, the initial report that we got from Wes, and in conversation with Kevin. Sorry. In conversation with Kevin, we were told we had to go through a process. We thought we were going through the process. Kevin clarified the process that he would like to see us go through, so we backed off from the last meeting. So we'll table it and we'll come to this meeting. So now we have a nice long conversation with Kevin and Wes, which we thought went well. We thought that we gave Wes the more information that he wanted. And then he comes back with a report that's, in my opinion, extremely opinionated, extremely negative, and like way worse than the first report. And I just kind of wondered what happened. I'd kind of like to know from Wes, I don't know if he's still listening, but what happened in our meeting to make you take the report from your first report into the second report? Just kind of curious on that. Did you guys read the first report and then compare it to the second report? Because it significantly changed the whole tone.
Well, and I think the thing is, though, I think we would have, the reason we suggested to continue is because it would have been, based on the criteria here, kind of the same thing you're facing right now. Obviously, with this report, you're still questioning the amount of information that is there. So there wasn't enough information. I kind of didn't want to waste their time because I think we would be in the same spot. You know, I think that's why we recommended, hey, let's pull back and do a more thorough evaluation of this, because we're obviously where we're at with a more detailed evaluation.
Well, we wouldn't have been better off coming to you a month ago, because things you guys are talking about now are coming from Wes's second report. So I'm just kind of curious what happened between the first report and the second report. All we did was give a little bit more information, do a little bit more due diligence, provide you with more information than you wanted. And now it's
Once again, I don't think that this board would have acted on the information that was given at the very beginning. Obviously, based on the significance or the fact that this is a contributing structure, there's certain criteria that need to be looked at, and it was, in my opinion, and you know, I guess you can criticize me for recommending that, but I don't think that the board would have acted.
I'm not criticizing you. Can Wes hear me? Can he answer that question?
So Wes, Craig has a question for you in regards to what has changed from your first letter to your second letter to the design review board.
Those letters seem much more positive.
Yeah. Wes?
Now, his first letter was
We don't have that in front of us tonight.
I
I
don't
don't remember reading it.
Right.
The first the building out towards the street, he was okay with that being demolished. The building in the back, he was not. That's still his position today.
The building in the front is not contributing, the building in the back is.
Correct.
Right.
And so the building in the front was a non-contributing, so he was in favor of that, or said it was okay to demolish that. The building in the back, because it was determined way back when to be contributing, then he was not in favor of demolishing the one in the back.
But you would never, a business owner or property owner would never add on to his or her building. Okay, with this White House in the back, it makes no sense. From an economic development standpoint, it makes absolutely no sense. So we bought our business in 2002, and I'm not gonna go on here. We bought our business in 2002, and we came to the Midway. Some of you remember what the Midway looked like. They were literally boarded up buildings. There was nothing going on from an economic standpoint. We bought the business. The very next year, we bought the building next door, which was, or maybe it was 2 years later, which was Fort Thomas Pizza. If you guys remember that. That was actually the first Best Furniture. That's where Eva and Charlie Best started the business out of. They lived upstairs in the apartment. And when we bought that, we let it sit for 5 years, and we didn't, first of all, didn't have the money, we didn't know what we were going to do with it. Then we came up with a good plan. My contractor then advised us to tear it down. Probably wouldn't have been an issue at all back then. I said, no, we can't tear this down. This was the original, this was the original Best Furniture. This is where they lived. So I'm very sensitive. We're very sensitive to the historical nature of things. If we felt the White House had any kind of historical value at all, we wouldn't be talking about this. So, you know, we did that renovation, we connected the buildings. I mean, you guys have the pictures there. I know it's not relevant to what you guys are deciding on today, but I think in some ways it is. So, grew the business has been very successful. Like Albert said, we bring people in from all over the tri-state area. They've heard of Fort Thomas, but they've never been here before. They think it's great. They come back, they frequent the establishments, they come back with their family and friends. And back when I was on the Renaissance Board, all we ever talked about was economic growth, economic renaissance, economic this, that, bringing people into the community, which is, we've done that in spades over the years. And I kind of feel like we're going after the wrong property and the wrong, property owner in this case. It's, the building, the house is, I would never put money into that and redo it. It would absolutely never in a million years would I do that. And that's why we would like to have it taken down so that we could proceed with our planning and proceed with, what we want to do, to expand our building again. I mean, we obviously aren't gonna do it, in a wrong manner. It's gonna look good, it's going to, you see the results. So we've done, like I said, we've done the building since '08. We're putting money into, we've literally invested, well over $1 million into our building, just the structure itself, millions of dollars into the business. Paid close to $1 million in property taxes over those years and payroll taxes. I just don't know what, I don't know what, as far as a benchmark for what the city should want a business owner to come in and do. I think we've accomplished that, and I think that should have some standing when we want to tear down a building that's, when it's time to tear down a building that we never intended to do anything with anyway. At no time when I was buying a building, did somebody, and like I said, I had discussions with people in Fort Thomas, just out of curiosity, what are you gonna do with it? I think we want to build a warehouse, or, I don't know, we'll tear it down someday and add on to the building. Nobody ever said, hey, wait a minute, you might want to think twice about that, you can't do that. And so it's put us in a very obviously a bad position right now. So if you don't find in favor of us tearing down the building, what's the next step? I'm not gonna say, okay, geez, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna restore this thing and we're gonna put it on the market and sell it. I don't wanna be a landlord, never did. We bought the property in the first place just to secure it and again, to give ourselves the ability to expand. We obviously aren't gonna build onto our existing building and have that thing sitting and, back behind it. Just that it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, I don't think anybody here would do that either. So, and I thought we went through the process, because that's what we kept being told. We have to go through this process. It's very important right now in the environment of the city because of, and I'd be honest with you, I'm kind of ignorant as to what all went on, but I know that this is a prickly issue for a lot of people. Hey, we just need to go through this process. Okay, we'll go through this process. 2 years ago, it wouldn't have mattered. We would have been able to take it down, no problem. Okay, we'll go through the process. Here's all the information you requested. Okay, can we do a little bit more? Can we have a conversation with Wes? Can you get us a little bit more information? Can you pay somebody to come out and, do an inspection, a licensed inspector come out? Okay? Didn't think we were gonna have to do that, but sure, we'll pay the money, we'll have that done. We'll get you more information, we'll do this, that, we'll have a 45-minute conversation with Wes, which we did, which we thought went well, right? And then it comes back with his opinion, again, which is way different than his first opinion. His first opinion didn't say, yeah, go ahead and tear it down, but his first opinion was stating the facts and the guidelines and now the second opinion, I really don't, I guess he can't hear us, but I really don't know what happened between that first. I'd be very curious to know what happened between that first report and the second report. Because it really put us behind the 8 ball. We read the report, we said there's no way they're gonna, roll in our favor. And, I don't understand the concept of, I understand why we have as a city, why we have a historical preservation consultant. But I'm not, in my opinion, maybe I'm taking it a little personally, because I'm a business owner and property owner, but in my opinion, and I understand what you said, but it makes us look bad, it makes me look bad, it makes it look like I intentionally neglected the building so that I could come before you 16 years later and say I want to tear it down. That's just, inconceivable that anybody would ever do that. And certainly somebody like me who has demonstrated over the years that, you know, when we do something, we do it right, it looks nice. You know, we were the first person, we spent the most money during the Renaissance Midway renovation. I mean, we connected the buildings, we did a huge facade renovation, and you see the difference in the photos, and we were the first ones that stuck our neck out and did that. Invested a lot of money, people, and I'm not taking credit for this at all, but people started asking us questions. Hey, you know, where'd you come up with the design? Who was the architect? We used Jerry Noren, who was a big part of all of that. You know, where did you get the awnings? How did you get the buildings to be connected? And, you know, I mean, and then people started doing things. People, you know, this person put up new awnings, and that person decided they were gonna put up new windows. Take the boards off of the windows and make it look like a nice, you know, building. So now we all know what the Midway District is like now. Again, I'm not saying it's, you know, because of us, but the fact is we were the first ones that stuck our neck out and really made that investment. And, you know, I'm not saying that we should get credit for that, you know, regarding this particular request, but it certainly should carry some water. So,
If you renovate that structure or sell that structure, you have the square footage behind your store to do what you want to do.
no, and we certainly, we don't, and we also don't think that we could accommodate the amount of parking spaces that we need. But I don't, again, I mean, I didn't think that the property owner was obligated to, we have maintained the house, that's another thing, this narrative that the house hasn't been maintained, we have done things to the house. We have shored it up when we noticed that there were problems, when we noticed that there was water penetrating, we went and fixed it. We did roof work, we did work inside the building itself. It was all done in-house, so to speak. But it's not like we just bought the house and said, you know, we're gonna wait 16 years and on November 22nd of 2024, we're gonna come before the design review board and ask to tear it down just for the heck of it. I mean, so like, I think that's why I take a little bit offended. I'm not offended, but that's why I take a little bit of umbrage with, you know, and I know that it's a preservation term, it's a technical term, but it's public knowledge, and if the layperson reads it, and, oh yeah, the owner just neglected it because he wanted to excuse the tear it down. I couldn't be further from the truth. We didn't have the plan, we didn't have the money, I mean, we didn't, you know, we've been putting, like I said, we put millions of dollars into our business. Obviously, we redid the interior of the store. I mean, I don't know how many of you have been in the store, but I mean, you know, obviously I'm a little biased, but it's kind of a gem in our industry. It's considered a gem. People from all over the area, people within the industry, and obviously our customers. I mean, they come to the store, they see one of the nicest stores around in the region. We have reps that have, you know, 3 states that they call on. So there's no store like this anywhere else. And we're kind of under the radar. You'd probably be shocked, you know, how many people come into our store from all over the tri-state area. And I think that's important. Again, I mean, I was doing what I thought the city wanted. Economic development. It was a big deal back when I was on the Renaissance Board. And now it seems like the most important thing is, you know, making sure that this house, in our opinion, has no historical value whatsoever, doesn't get torn down. What are we gonna do with it? I'm not doing anything with it. So I don't understand why that's an issue to, you know, tear it down, assuming we go through the process, which we did.
The simple fact is it is noted as a contributing structure in a designated regulated historic district. That is the ultimate.
But that's why we have
succinct.
it. Right, but isn't that why we have a design review board to make that judgment and say,
Correct.
yes, it's
And what I said
structure.
a little bit ago, and we also have to give the general public an opportunity to speak here as well before we take any motion. There are 3 primary criteria that we have to interpret and apply in this instance. Number 1 hasn't happened. Number 2 hasn't been met. Number 3 hasn't been met. My opinion.
Would you mind going, left my,
Number one, the structure is deemed, and this is directly from the guidelines, the structures which were in place when you bought the property.
when I bought the property.
The structure is deemed a public health or safety hazard by the city building inspector. The owner provides a written report performed by a licensed structural engineer or architect noting structural damage sufficient to render rehabilitation is unfeasible. The report shall clearly outline all deficiencies of the building and cost estimates for rehabilitation. The extent of the total, number three, the extent of the total rehabilitation costs necessary to bring the structure up to compliance with the city building property maintenance code is deemed to place an unreasonable economic hardship on the owner as determined by the board compared with demolition replacement costs for the structure. I'll reiterate what I said like 30 minutes ago. My opinion is the structure report that was provided is razor thin and makes absolutely no justification from any technical standpoint about the condition of the structure.
Do we have to meet all three of those guidelines? Or just one?
One.
I feel like we met all three. I know we've at least met two. If the report was light, then that's something that Albert.
There's not been a meeting with the city building inspector.
We didn't request that.
I don't believe, and I'm only one voice up here, but again, just interpreting what I would expect to see in a technical report from an engineer or an architect, I don't believe that it rises to the level of justifying demolition. And number three, while there's a cost estimate that's been provided, I think you've heard at least from three of the four of us, that based upon the detail that's provided, it seems astronomically expensive. So there could be a second phase of a technical report that is prepared and submitted. There could be a more thorough, detailed estimate that is provided. I believe, and we've had, I want to reiterate too, because I think we all appreciate what your business, I'll say it again, has meant to the community and the quality of your facility. We've regulated a $500 vinyl sign to a similar level because the material that they've submitted has been insufficient. It doesn't paint the full picture of what they want to do, and so they make a decision to withdraw their application, come back the next month with actual drawings of what they want to do that show how they satisfy the design guidelines.
That's where to me, is where we've been going through this for almost 2.5 months. I'm sorry, this is the first time we're in front of you guys, and that's where we failed again. Is last month we should have been here, but it seems like every step of this process has been, and I just fought for Newport, for Brian Stephan and Scott Clark to get a historic overlay, and I looked at the residents and said, no, there's a committee that makes sense, they won't make you do this. And I fought for that. We've been asked to do this, and we think we do this, and excuse me for the skinniness of the thing, but if we did get a structure, and that's our fault for not having, but that's the things that structural engineer report, so that's what we got. Our due diligence should have been like, hey, and I'm gonna go and talk with Steve and Ray and say, hey, I've been using you guys into River Xavier, the incubator, you set me up for failure. But my comment is like, to me, I'm just saying to you, my advice to the client, it sounds like you're gonna deny it, but I would, I don't think we're ever gonna get approved, you know what I mean? I really don't, I feel like I'm just frustrated with the process, because we've gone month after month after month after month, trying to get more information. We had a great meeting with Les and Kevin, and we thought we were there. And
So
that's shame on us, like we didn't think.
I don't know that it's shame on us. We even brought up the idea of Wes having inspected by the building inspector. Wes said that was a very reasonable thing to do, and we were advised not to do that. We didn't want the words where we don't want to spread the city too thin. So we were trying to go through the process, trying to go through the hoops as we understood them, as we were being told what those hoops were. We go through them. Hey, can we do a little more? Do you mind? Let's have this meeting. Let's get a little bit more information. So we do it, and then is Wes not here? I mean, is Wes not on the call?
No, he is on the
Oh,
call.
can he answer my question?
Yes. Wes, are you there? Wes, are you there? All right. Craig, did you want to ask your previous question?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear the person at the podium?
I can't hear much from the,
Maybe,
You could.
yeah, we asked that.
I would have thought you might have been at this meeting, because he had such a strong opinion. Wes? Wes?
Well, Wes, can you hear me? Wes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, Wes, so the question is, we're just kind of curious. Your first report was very, generic and just kind of laid out the procedures and the guidelines, and then we, were asked to address those and address them in more detail, so we had a meeting with you, gave you more information. And then your second report seemed to come out like much more negative and much more opinionated, and we're just curious what happened in our meeting. Did we say something or give you the wrong information that caused you to take your report to to the level that you took the second report?
No, not at all. The first report was written much more, before I was under the impression, the first one, that there hadn't been a formal application for demolition. Kevin and I talked, he wanted to know, my thoughts and opinions on if these applications came before. And so the first one was a lot more generic. I hadn't heard anything about the buildings, or, I met with you all, I didn't know anything about the integrity of the building or anything like that. Our meeting was helpful, and, I thought it was very productive. The final report, I did intend for it to come off sounding negative, but, ultimately, my recommendations are rooted in two places. One, I was unaware that the building had been, that it had been owned for 16 years and was still in such rough condition. And the other one, and I think that the board has brought this up a couple times, that the structural engineer report was pretty lacking and inconclusive in terms of meeting the criteria for number two, that the building rehabilitation is infeasible. It talked about the building being in rough shape, that it had been neglected, but that's kind of where it left off. There was nothing in that report that to me read that this building cannot be rehabilitated. This building is structurally unsound and cannot be saved. So those two factors weighed in heavily into me providing my recommendation in the final report. Again, the first one, the fact that I know you all have had the building for 16 years. After the design review guidelines went into place, before the building was listed in the National Register. And that's why my ultimate recommendation was that this is, to me, in my professional opinion, is a case of demolition by neglect of a building that has deteriorated over the past 16 years due to neglect and a failure to keep the building in decent shape, which in my professional expertise and is a common belief and a common standard held across preservation practice, that a self-made hardship in terms of letting a building get to the point where it's economically infeasible is different than an economic hardship, which is how I think this building does. I apologize if
Okay, for the record, there was an application when you wrote that initial opinion.
You're saying, Kevin, you did not, I mean, Wes, I'm sorry, you're saying, Wes, you did not have that structural report. We talked about the structural report, that same one they're saying is skinny in that meeting. And we had that report before that meeting, and before that report went out. That's where I'm confused. I'm confused that we had the structural report, we talked about it. I didn't, what they're saying is skinny. Shame on me, shame on all of us that are in the industry that it's skinny, but we had that, and we talked about that structural report in that meeting.
Wes may or may not have had an opportunity to review it at the time. I don't remember the exact time of it.
I had a meeting and,
Reviews.
in the meeting, it was implied that the structural engineer report was inclusive in one way or another. But the way I read it, the way it sounded before, read it, it lacks a definitive statement, lacks a thorough analysis or evaluation of the integrity of the building.
Anything else for Wes?
No.
I can't hear because I'm facing directly at the mic, by the way.
So if we go back to
I think we're good for.
if we go back to, is this a hazard? And we asked the building inspector to come and look at it, which is what we wanted to do, and one of the ideas that we had, and frankly, like I said, an idea that Wes kind of thought that might be a good road to go down. And we didn't do that.
I just think, it just don't.
Is that an option? I mean, is that something? Is that an option?
The report
To
was
me,
given.
the main problem we keep running into here is that we are charged by the citizens of this town to review these applications for demolition. And in our guidelines, we only have 3 criteria to which we can allow demolition. Okay. Right now, as said, none of them we feel have been met. But we need to go ahead and look at each one of them and say, what would we recommend? In my mind, the first one, we should have Kevin look at the building. Okay, 2 ways. One, is it currently occupiable? Okay, because it hasn't been occupied in a long time, my gut would tell me it's probably not possible to be occupied today. Okay. So does that meet the full criteria of being a public health and safety hazard? Probably not, but it's certainly getting it towards there. Okay. So, and if you can look at it and say, yeah, it is really a public health hazard. Okay. Because unfortunately, you've been using the building as a storage building. Understood. Okay. It's not a residence, hasn't been for all the years that you owned it. Okay. Second thing, as Jeff had mentioned, the structural engineering report is a little thin. It would be nice to get a little more on that, bolster that, so that we could say, okay, you meet maybe that criteria. The third one is we question that maybe the estimate's a little too high. Well, if it is, then we need a second opinion. My recommendation would be that maybe the city needs to hire a contractor to go ahead and take a look at it and see what the cost might be. Because usually if you have a piece of property or piece of real estate, one person says it's worth a certain amount, another person says it's worth a different amount. They each get appraisals, and then you can look at it and say, okay, what's the number in the middle? So now we can have a, sort of consensus value of what it would cost to rehabilitate the building. And look at that and see whether that makes sense for anybody to ever spend that kind of money to bring that back to a residence. If any one of those 3 fail, then it's, we could vote at that point, if we feel like it, that it was a non-contributing building and it could be demoed.
Well, it would still be a contributing building, but we might have material that supports its demolition.
Yeah, the problem is when we talk about contributing, the contributing part was years ago.
It was noted as a contributing structure when the report in the district was created, correct?
Correct.
And in the years since, it's still technically that a contributing structure, although it has deteriorated and been unoccupied. Its status as a contributing structure has not changed.
Is there any districts that you guys know of that there's only one building that's contributing? Most overlays, they have to have they have to have a certain amount of contributing buildings to make an overlay, or is there ever a overlay that there's only one building that's contributing?
I don't know the answer to that.
No, well, if you look at the map that they put out back when they did the analysis of the area, there's a number of buildings obviously that are contributing in that area.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what seems kind of odd is actually everything that surrounds you, all your next door neighbors and everything are non-contributing.
And that's
Even your best furniture store that you
Right.
have today
Exactly, yeah.
was considered non-contributing back to them.
And some truly historic buildings right on the street are considered non-contributing.
I just feel like they had and sometimes they southern board and things like we had to have so many residential versus commercial to get an overlay district. And that's Wes and I were talking about what is it contribute, you know, I mean, Kevin and I talked about, was it something part of the green line, was it part of, you know, what was it, you know, trying to figure that out. But, I was trying to figure out why it was being contributing, which that's the $50 million question.
Yeah, and it is odd that you go sometimes, well, I guess we do sometimes go behind the street front. I mean, obviously the street front is the most important part of what the district looks like. And buildings that are hidden behind and so on contribute less to that. But it's still, like Jeff said, we have to look at it from a standpoint of, is it a contributing building or not? And the documentation that we have said it is. So we only have 3 things that could say that that building could be demolished.
I just like one last thing for me to close, and I don't like this in the game around town because I'm made up to be the bad guy, and I have a lot bigger fish to fry, and you made up to be a bad guy in my own city. But I want to be on the record to say the structural engineering report was given to West before that first, or given to the city at least, and we talked about it in that first report, and it was never mentioned to us as a scheme. And that's shame on me for not realizing that, shame on me for that, but then also shame on the city for not saying it's really skinny, you better get it. But I do want to go on the record that, because Wes has said he didn't have it and it was given. And that's frustrating to me.
I've presented cases in court before where a judge said, Mr. Schneider, you really don't have enough evidence right now. I can rule right now, or you can come back later. I'm hearing several judges saying, we're interested in fleshing out the evidence a little bit. No guarantee, but flesh out the evidence a little bit more, rather than being concerned about whether or not shame on anybody. I think you're hearing people, the judge is telling you, we may be interested in this, but we think there's more work that needs to be done. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, I understand that, and I appreciate that, but my point would just be, we put a lot of time and money and effort, energy, opportunity costs already into doing this. I run a furniture store, I put a tremendous amount of time into this, that I just, I don't know that I'm prepared to put any more time into it, to be honest with you. And,
Well, it's odd because the board actually has the charge of making sure that businesses are successful. It says it in our guidelines. Unfortunately, that particular aspect of it is not included when you start talking about demolition. It's not in there. We can't look in a way at, supporting the business, I guess.
I mean, to be specific about the report, there's a line that says at the end, due to the amount of neglect observed, we recommend that finishes, drywall, plaster, etc., be removed and any compromised framing should be repaired or replaced. So there's a very direct line in the report that says that compromised framing should be repaired or replaced. It doesn't say anything about demolition as the recommendation. And there's nothing about the foundation, which is one of those things that becomes very clear that demolition is necessary, but there's not any teeth in the report to recommend demolition as the end result. So I think that's the biggest struggle. And the report is effectively recommending repair.
Renovation.
And I think that's what Wes was reacting to. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's what I guess I personally read as the only thing that's really directive in the materials that were submitted as part of the
So the
application.
property owner can't be compelled to do a renovation on a property that she doesn't want to do a renovation on, right? So I don't, it's a very onerous kind of a process that we're having to go through. And I understand why, you want it to be a little bit onerous, but this is, I think, kind of jumping the shark on the onerous, effect that it's had. But I don't think I don't wanna table it again.
And frankly, I'm gonna walk away. I don't wanna get into, no offense, Greg, it's just not worth me in my own town to get into. If 10% or even 1% of the population is gonna be mad at me for tearing down a house, and we're gonna support that 1% and do that. I don't wanna be that guy in my own town that does this.
That is a legitimate point and a legitimate concern where, and I understand the
We
position
did
you're
it, we
in.
had a conversation with us, I understand now hindsight's 20/20 on the report.
You
But
sure
I
you,
had a meeting with Wes, and the structural engineer report was.
yeah, and we
Now,
weren't a part of it anyway,
hindsight's
we weren't a part of the,
I
any of those
know, I
meetings,
get it,
we
I
see the
frustrated.
applications when they come in, when they're submitted, we have an opportunity to discuss them here in this format. We are volunteers and also residents in this community. I received personal letters at my residence, lambasting or supporting me, depending upon who wrote it, so I fully appreciate
I
it.
understand what you guys
Yeah.
do, you got a tough job, I get it, and it's not fun, it's not fun, and it's not fun,
I think we'll let, if somebody else wants to say something, then we can move.
Thank you for coming tonight. If there is anybody from the public that would like to say anything, you're welcome to. If you do come to the podium, again, please give us your name and your address. Okay, is there any further discussion up here? Is anyone prepared to make a motion on the application as submitted?
Do you want to table this and apply again, or what's your thought?
When we tabled the first, I need to come back up here.
Please, just because the audio is being recorded and also live streamed. So yes.
We tabled it the first time, and again, it put a lot of time into it before then, put a ton of time into it since then. I don't have the time to keep going down this road, so. I ask a question if you don't rule in our favor, which doesn't appear you're going to, then what happens? If I say, okay, I'm done with this again, what's that?
You have the right to appeal it to circuit court, basically file a lawsuit in circuit court, saying that their decision was wrong, either procedurally or substantively.
Which costs obviously money, my time, and all the opportunity costs with it. What am I, other than maintaining it, it's another thing in the narrative that we haven't maintained that, I think has gotten some legs that I don't really understand why. We've maintained it, we've maintained the property the way we needed to maintain a property that we never intended to do anything with, other than to tear it down to expand our business. So I just continue to maintain the property, try and keep water out, try and keep animals out. Board up windows when people from the north side of the building throw stuff at guy sets up an archery range and takes archery practice up against the house, when we find syringes.
The trespassers, you can call the police. I mean, I'm not being smart aleck, I'm
No, I understand, but, I mean, first of all, we have to catch them.
Right.
I mean, we maintain the yard, we trim the bushes, we clean up litter on a weekly basis. So, I mean, is that what we want in the community, is a house that's just going to remain but not serve any purpose?
I would just like to reiterate a comment I've made twice, which is I think that there could be a pathway here for you to amend your application that further justifies why this building could be suitable for demolition. I don't believe that, my opinion, I don't believe that what's been submitted to date satisfies that pathway that it could.
So you asked if I guess we have to make a decision if we want to table this again.
You could, or we could make a motion to table it if you're prepared to, I mean.
I would like to
And that
do a
doesn't,
motion.
if there is a motion, and that doesn't prevent you from coming back before the board with more information, next month or the month after. So they can make a decision tonight, it doesn't prevent you from coming back with more information.
Effectively reapplying. And I mean, just point of order that I don't think we tabled it previously, was it? It was just.
It wasn't formally
application
tabled, it was,
withdrawn.
we were discussing, and essentially, from a staff perspective, there wasn't enough information to submit to you, is why we would be in the same spot, so.
Yeah.
There was just not enough information.
Do you have an opinion, or do you want to talk about it?
I just look to you never get it approved. I think it's a conformity building, and they're gonna stick to that gun. We went through, Wes changed his thing, he said he's gonna have to rule.
I don't think the audio picked that up, but I would not make that assumption. I think that there is a pathway there. The guidelines contemplate that demolition can occur if the material satisfies and allows us to make a reasonable interpretation and application of the material that's been submitted. I don't want you to assume that it is summarily rejected from here or in the future simply because. And I say that having been on your side more than I've been on this side. So we're familiar as architects who do this for a living on the type of information and criteria that's typically required in a historic district or any other zoning board or whatever. Fort Thomas is quite light compared to a lot of the ones that we practice in.
Oh, that's great, you guys, then
So
I'm glad
So
you
I
guys
think-
are all there.
I
I'm
think
frustrated
we
with
can-
Wes, I'm just frustrated with your historical consultant, because we had a great meeting, we didn't think we were gonna be here.
Yep, again, we weren't part of that, don't know what was discussed, don't know what was submitted.
Yeah.
We're here tonight with the information that's in front of us.
Do we have to come back next month?
You can come back on whatever timeline you want. We meet monthly. If the application has been submitted in time and then it's given to us in time, I've said a couple of times already, we are more than happy to make a field trip and visit the property as well. I would recommend if you want to table it, this is my opinion only, if you want to table it, I would have the technical report prepared again and made available to us before a site visit.
Okay.
So that way we have kind of the full picture of what's in play for discussion and review. And then there would be a formal meeting. Sometimes we've done the meeting we did the one for Alexander Circle on premise, if I recall, shortly after we did a pretty extensive tour of every single one of those houses inside and out. So,
Okay, well, let's table it then.
okay. For the sake of clarity, should we go ahead and make a motion that the applicant has tabled the application? Okay, somebody likes to make a motion.
Before we make a motion, can we add into the motion requirements on the city? Such that, I'd like Kevin to go ahead and take a look at it from a occupancy permit standpoint, safety, what else was there?
Public health or safety.
Public health and safety. If Kevin isn't willing or capable of doing that, we could get someone to do that for us. And then The other one that I felt could be a city burden would be to have a rehabber take a look at it and give their opinion on what the cost might be to rehab.
I think that would be a recommendation as part of your motion. Certainly.
Yeah, I don't wanna say that we'll absolutely fulfill that, but, you know, we'll have to think that through, you know.
But we can add that into our motion.
I want to be clear though, I think to have a credible estimate prepared by someone, especially who's not familiar with this, they need to have a clear understanding on what the expectation would be for the finished condition. Is it a single family house? Is it a duplex? Is the
No,
entire?
I would allow the rehabber to look at it as, if it was their building, what would they do with it? I mean, if they think it's best as a single family house, fine, do it that way. If it's best as a two-family house, look at it that way.
I think that goes down a slippery slope personally. I would expect that if an estimate has been prepared and contemplated a certain scope of work, I would think that when we've had to have validating estimates prepared by an independent third party, they are bidding off, or they are doing their estimate off of the same information that was provided to the original contractor, and not their own opinion of if they were to do it their own way, would it cost this for this kind of use? I think that we would have to establish apples to apples comparison between what was submitted here and what another entity would provide.
Can we look to the text for maybe direction on that of the extent of the total rehabilitation cost necessary to bring the structure up to compliance with the city building / property maintenance code is deemed to place an unreasonable economic hardship. So if there is step one to evaluate the structure from a city official, then that would give somebody a marching order on how to evaluate rehabilitation costs. Because you don't necessarily have to bring this up to something that is being meant to be sold as a single family residence in a high-end situation with finishes and things that are not intent. This is trying to bring something up to, if this building is not currently occupiable, that the building would then be occupiable. Is that fair to say in terms of how the language is written?
I would say yes.
You know, I mean, I don't think we're trying to evaluate something against a theoretical bar higher than what it was when the property was purchased.
Essentially similar to what it was.
Right.
Because, I mean, if you were trying to look at it and you were gonna put a big house on it, obviously, you're not comparing apples to apples. If you're going to basically restore what was there, I think now you're looking at apples to apples.
And if the current conditions are not such that it's not occupiable, you don't have to put in quartz countertops and you have to get a flooring that is able to be a minimum building code compliant situation.
Who makes the request if we wanted to go down the road of having the building inspector come out? Who does the property owner make that request?
We can talk about that.
Yeah, that's not our. Okay. All right, I'm sorry, we got the sideboard there. You were.
I guess the other part here is, if you don't mind me saying, I'm just trying to think this out loud, that, you know, Craig's interest would be to, in all likelihood, and I don't want to say this for certain, but I'm thinking that we're focusing on the single family because that's what it was, or duplex, whatever is decided. But should there be a tangent of making this a viable portion of his business? You know, so if he is going to use this, if he has to keep it, maybe it's not as a single family. Maybe it's as part of his structure that he has to put another addition onto and then somehow tie into this and use it as a viable part of his business. I'm just shooting from the hip, but I don't want to have a total disconnect as far as that we're saying that this has to come back as a single family, because I mean, there could be other options there for the applicant. And I'm just trying to think that out in my mind, like how do you incorporate something like that? That in all reality, if he's gonna bring this thing back, it seems to me that he wouldn't bring it back as a single family. He would bring it back as something that could potentially add to his business. And at that point, you know, the cost may go up for, you know, somehow tying into a structure, maybe creating handicap accessibility if needed, things of that nature. I'm trying to play that out in my mind as far as we're focusing on the single family because, or duplex, whatever it was prior, and putting a number that's apples to apples. But to make it viable for him or for the future, it seems to me it would be maybe more in a capacity of a somehow commercial addition to his structure. And that changes the whole scope of the cost of the structure. It very well could.
You would be evaluating renovation of the space with a change of use to be compliant for a retail situation or whatever it is.
Right, and I think that, you know, to do that, you know, it would be putting an addition onto his current structure and then somehow tying into this, which could be significantly more than trying to redo this as a single family. So I don't know if that's another approach or how we kind of bridge that gap where, well, hey, listen, if I'm tasked as an owner, as Craig, to do something with this structure, maybe it's to bring it to compliance from a commercial standpoint, tie into it, and then the costs associated with that. And I don't know how we bridge that gap. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think the first step is a statement of the intended purpose, right? Because I don't know that was necessarily part of the application. There were three directions talked about: a single-family residence of historical stature, a duplex of how it was being used most recently, and then as a commercial, whatever, new build or any extension of a commercial establishment. So I think, what is the intended use? Then you're evaluating renovating that existing structure for that intended use versus tearing it down and building a new one that meets those same requirements in the end. And I think that was like part of the thing that was wrestling, like that I had a struggle with. You're talking about a single family residence, and then the pro forma is about renting 2 apartments for $1,500 a month. And so, like, I don't know how you make those connections as economically viable or not when you're trying to use it as a function of the furniture store, right? So I think if you're trying to use that space, how do you theoretically renovate that to develop the cost?
That was the direction. I think that what's that? I think we thought that was the direction we should go. But I would say, and I appreciate it, I think you have a good idea there, but I would just say as the property owner, the cost to do something like you're suggesting would probably be extremely prohibitive. Because if we redo maybe I missed it, maybe I missed
No, and I tend to agree. What I'm getting at is that an avenue for which you want to consider, because maybe there is additional costs associated to try and bring this and incorporate it into your business and
usable space.
And that's what I'm getting at. I don't want to say that one way is better than the other. I'm just saying, is there another alternative than just saying, hey, this comes back as a single family? So I think it would be at that point comparing, once again, apples to apples, whatever that decision is we're comparing apples to apples. This is what it would cost us to bring this.
That's not what we're charged to evaluate, because it says right here, it's the structure up to compliance with the city building property maintenance code.
Okay.
So
And that's what I was
you
getting at.
can't really change use and use that as an analysis.
Okay.
And I'll do research on it.
We're not allowed to do that. I think this requirement does limit us quite a bit, because it doesn't talk about higher or best use of a piece of property. There's a lot of times where, what's best for the city, what's best for the community is for something to come down because something better is going to go into place. But we can't use that.
I agree with Pat. I'm gonna do research to check. My concern is because it's a contributing property, that that we're going to be held to that language, and it's gonna be restoring it to that particular use. I'll do some research though, and see if I find anything where the courts have decided, how that issue should be resolved.
Yeah, 'cause I don't, for demolition, I don't think we can use the higher.
No, I appreciate
higher
that.
best
I didn't have
use.
the language in front of me, so I was just
Yeah.
kind of making sure that we've got that out there before.
It would make it a no-brainer if we could use that, because I would think putting up a really nice store in that area would be better than having this building way in the back. That's even a residence. I mean, as a residence, if you did it as a single family, it could be somewhat nice. You overlook the reservoir. You know, there are some amenities there that, would be nice to have from a standpoint of current use, you know, but we can't, it looks like we can't really look at current use. We gotta look at, just property, maintenance. You know, building code issues and property maintenance.
So are you all continuing this in progress? Will you set a new date? Is that going to be the motion that?
I think we'll make a motion to table at the applicant's request, and they will amend their application at a future date and time.
Sounds good.
But I would, I'd like to add the things that we'd like to see the city do.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and make a motion then, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. I move that first we table this particular application at this time. I also would make a motion that we ask the city to look into the structure from a health and safety hazard situation, so we can get better information on that. I would suggest in a motion that the property owners do a more thorough structural examination of the building so that we can understand whether that particular piece comes into play. And I would recommend that the city potentially get a rehabber of their choice to come in and look at the building and give them a cost for bringing it up to the standard for the building code and property maintenance code.
I'll second. We have a motion, sorry. I was taking some notes. We have a motion to table the application as submitted with a request to have the city building inspector review the current structure for its health safety hazard. Owner shall submit a more thorough structural analysis report, and the city to potentially solicit an independent estimate to bring the building up to current code compliance. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, it's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion's been tabled. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for everyone being here. There's no additional business. It is 7:59 p.m. and I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn, is it seconded? Second. Been seconded, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned at 7:59 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, appreciate it. I've been in issues before. I'll never go back. Oh, well done. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll be.